But the reality is, in a lot of industries, not just our industry, right? I feel that service is dead, right? You walk into an office, whether it's a doctor's office or anywhere you go these days, I mean, forget about being greeted with a smile, right? It's a lot if whomever greets you looks up at you, right? Let alone giving you a gracious greeting. And so that's where it starts for us.
I'm Garrett. Welcome to the Advisor Advocates Podcast, bringing the latest industry trends and best practices from leaders of the top firms in the financial services industry. Welcome back to the Advisor Advocates Podcast. Garrett Lale here as always, and excited to introduce another new contributing partner firm, James Costabile with ICG Next. You guys are in Wall Township, New Jersey. I'll be totally honest with you, I'd never heard of that until I met you. Excited to meet you there, and thanks for coming on. I've really, for the audience and viewers and listeners, wherever you're enjoying this wonderful production, James and I, we met 3 or 4 months ago. We've been having conversations back and forth for quite a while, and I've really enjoyed getting to know you, James. We started a new podcast for your firm called the What's Next podcast. It's just about to go live on the Wealth Partners Network very soon, but have just really enjoyed getting to know you and your team. This is one of these really funny ironies, I guess. I want to compliment you on how humble you are, but I've also found humble people don't like to be complimented about how humble they are. It's kind of contradictory in its nature, but just have enjoyed getting to know you guys. So excited to be partnering with you on this.
Same here. Thanks, Garrett. Appreciate it.
So you have a really cool name, first of all, ICG Next. It's got a very modern feel to it, a very modern, sleek website, icgnext.com. If for advisors out there, I encourage you to check out the website. It looks very sleek, really cool logo. I love the logo. What's the backstory of ICG? How did you guys come to be? How did you come to exist? And what's your story?
Yeah, I mean, listen, the firm goes back decades and decades in some fashion or another. It really erupted from, the three partners were individual practitioners in our own right, over a period of 20 or 30 years, and built our practices one client at a time. And I'd say somewhere in the early 2000s, we created Intellectual Capital Group, which was really kind of the image of the company prior to ICG Next. And we made a departure from Ameriprise, which is, we were with them for many, many years, made a departure from them in 2019, and we kind of went on a quest to rebrand, and we started to think about, what was next for us as advisors. And, then as we thought a little bit further, and we had some really, great marketing folks that had helped us, we said, wow, a lot of what we do is centered around what's next for our clients, right, in their retirement or what have you. And, part of the growth of the firm, or part of what we were looking to do with the firm is, what is next for advisors. And so, from that stemmed ICG Next, the logo and kind of the new branding that we went live with. So, yeah, we're very happy with it. And I think it, more so than being happy with it, it's truly, truly reflective of, what our team is doing on a day-to-day basis, whether that's for our clients or for our team members, is really kind of looking at, what's next and how do you map a plan forward to get there.
You just kind of asked your next question for yourself there. That's an interesting skill to have, to be able to ask your own question. But
I didn't even know I
from
didn't.
An industry, yeah, you didn't. Surprised. The industry has changed so much in the last 20 years, 30 years, 10 years, 5 years. You can take any time frame, really, more than 5 years, and we can talk about that. Technology's reshaped a lot of the ways that advisors do things. The fiduciary standard, the rise of the fiduciary standard has changed things a lot. I did an episode on this one time that just technology itself has made it so much easier for advisors to go independent. Advisors are often surprised at how, I hate to say cheap, but that is the correct word, how cheap it is to have your own independent practice nowadays, as opposed to what it might have been 20 years ago. Yeah. So all that to say, I love one of my unique abilities. I don't even want to call it a talent, but one of the things I'm good at is saying a whole lot and not asking a question. But you can still find a question in there somewhere, right? But what is next for advisors? I mean, based on where the industry is right now, where do you see what's next for advisors in the next 5 years, 10 years?
The question takes me back to where we were in 2016 and 2017. in our careers, right? Again, we were individual practitioners. Two of us had done some stints in leadership and management and just kind of recognized maybe it wasn't where we wanted to be, although we spent a number of years there. So private practices, were kind of booming. Things were good. We saw from a client perspective, we saw the breadth of service that clients wanted getting bigger and bigger, right? Clients want more. They want, more comprehensive discussions. They want more holistic planning. So that's kind of what we were seeing, at least on our end. And we were doing that, right? And we feel like we were doing that fairly well. And so what we recognized, and certainly we're not the only ones that recognize this. I mean, I think the industry was recognizing the evolution in the 2015, 2016 is where I think it really started to erupt of, what are advisors doing? What are their plans going to be? And so we started on this kind of inorganic growth quest, right? So we made a decision together as we kind of birthed ICG Next that we were going to continue down our organic growth of serving our clients exceptionally well, but we were now going to start to kind of put ourselves out there and really start to look at, I would say, 3 categories of advisors that we thought may want to consider, our team, and that was early and mid-career. So we felt that, hey, as advisors are aging, there needs to be talent on the bench, so to speak, that needs to be recruited and trained and developed in order to kind of provide the advice of the future, not only for the existing baby boomer clients, but for those multi-generational kids and grandkids that are going to inherit the wealth in the wealth transfer. So we started on this kind of journey, and what we felt is that advisors were looking for infrastructure. They were looking for, a place to grow their practice. And so we started on that journey there. The other thing that we recognized is that there was another category of advisors that were thinking about what was next for them. And these were folks that were towards the back end of their career, right? And I think what, research had shown or even experience had shown is that, the concept of passing your book on to the next generation or selling your book was just not quite as easy as it was said, right? There's just kind of a long process and very difficult to find those right folks. And so the way that we kind of started to build our model, the way that we started to think about what was next for us as a firm and as practitioners was to really start to be a place where we can pair these retiring advisors with early and mid-career advisors that were really, really yearning to provide exceptional service. They just didn't have the 30 years in the front end of their career to kind of build that practice. So we believe that it was a really, really likely match. And again, we're not the only ones out there that recognize this. And that's kind of how we started to build the firm's capacity in that way. We felt that if we were going to go in that direction, that we needed to kind of create an infrastructure and a staff and client service professionals that were going to be able to support that match.
Yeah, you're right that the industry is recognizing what you just said, and you're not the only one providing that. However, you might be surprised, and I think a lot of people might be surprised, when an advisor reaches out to me about searching for a new firm. I work with, the gambit of different types of advisors, mid-career, young advisors, retiring advisors. But I will say there's a clear-cut, most common profile that I seem to work with and seem to attract and talk to. And that advisor is typically around 50 to 60 years old. They are not quite ready to leave, but they definitely do not plan on ever moving again after this next move. They're looking for their forever home, so to speak. So for that reason, even though they might be 15 years away from retirement, a question that I get, if I were to send a survey out to the industry of what do you think the most commonly asked questions are from potential advisors switching firms that I would get as a recruiter, a lot of them you would expect and wouldn't be surprises. But I bet one that would surprise some people that's in my top 5 questions is, what does this firm that I'm considering joining do for succession? What is their plan on the back end? So while you're not the only one doing it, there are a lot of firms that have not quite checked that box yet, and that puts them really behind the 8 ball when it comes to recruiting new advisors.
Yeah, it's funny because one of my partners, said something to me many, many years ago, and it was really, really rang true, even for ourselves inside of our own firm. a lot of advisors, they feel that succession, right? They can check that box if they have this document. Hey, here's my succession agreement. Here's my succession plan. And yeah, the document is part of it, but the bigger piece that we recognize, and that's kind of how we've tried to kind of build the firm moving forward, is what about the capacity, right? So anybody can have a document saying that I'm going to buy Garrett's practice or I'm going to be Garrett's succession plan, but if 150 households landed on my plate tomorrow, right, because God forbid something happened to Garrett, A, do I have the capital to handle it for his family, right? And B, do I have the capacity to actually serve those clients as well or better than Garrett did? And so for us, right, we started to look beyond the document that says, hey, I'm going to be your successor, or you're the type of firm that I would want to be my successor. And we started to look at how would that logistically work. And so when we look at acquisitions and when we look at advisors that might join our firm, regardless of whether they're early, mid, or late career, we look at specifically where they're going to fit in, right? How is that going to work? Because it's important, right? I think it's actually probably the most important part of the overall process.
What's the size of your team in terms of how many advisors do you have on your team right now, and what's your total AUM for the entire group?
So we've got roughly 18 advisors in the group between New York, New Jersey, and Florida. We've got 11 or 12 staff members in varying capacities: operations, marketing, client service. And right now, the firm's AUM is roughly about 2.1 billion or so. And a lot of that is recent. We made our move to LPL in 2019 with growth on our mind, and we were well under $1 billion in AUM when we made that move, and it was inorganic growth that we had our eye on, and we spoke with and interviewed with a lot of different partners when we felt that Ameriprise was a great place for us to have grown our practice, but we just did not think that it was the right place for us to the next 10 years, if you will. And LPL has been a wonderful partner to us. But right now, the firm sits there, and we're fairly strategic on our growth, right? We believe that we need to find people that join our firm that it sounds cliche to say this, right? But that demonstrate our values, right? So, we're born and bred holistic financial planners. That's who we are. And so, we aim towards those types of professionals that believe in kind of that holistic advice. We are very, very much geared towards the advisory world. We believe that offers, the most flexible platform oftentimes for clients to invest. So we look for certain characteristics that advisors may have or that they may possess, when we're looking at that strategic growth initiatives.
And are your advisors independent contractors, 1099s, or do they come in as W-2 employees of your firm?
Independent contractors, yeah. We believe in giving advisors, right? Number one, we're fully independent, right? So we believe in the independent model. We believe that advisors should maintain full equity in their practice and that they shouldn't be held hostage at a firm or a broker-dealer, that they should be able to come and go freely. As much as I don't like to say that, the reality is if we're not offering a value proposition, then an advisor should be free to go where they want to go to get that, and I firmly believe that. We have a very, very high retention rate because we do believe that we listen and try to continue to build out the infrastructure and the support so that they're encouraged and motivated to stay with us and grow together with us. The reality is, we are on an independent platform and 1099 model. It's what we believe in. We want to give them the flexibility to run their practice their way and do so with the support and that they need from us.
Yeah, it's funny that the beautiful grace of free will, I suppose, is the way I would describe it. But when you hold a gun to someone's head and say you have to stay here, your retention rate ends up being a lot lower sometimes than when you give the advisor the free will to say, hey, look, open door. But that forces you as the firm to do a good job and to make them, I hate to say it this way, but it is the truth, to recognize the fact that you are a service provider to that advisor, not their boss and not their keeper. So
yeah, we're very clear on that, right? I think that's well said, Garrett. We are very, very clear that the reality is, our job is to create an environment where our people feel motivated to grow, motivated to offer exceptional client service to their clients, because let's face it, that's what this business is all about. Even at a firm level, when we're looking at mergers and acquisitions, everything really boils back down to how are we supporting the end client. And so for us, we look at it very, very clearly. We take input from our people and say, hey, how can we make it better? We can't always deliver what everyone's looking for. We recognize that, but we try to kind of continue to do that, whether it's on the marketing side or on the operations side, or just the platform in general.
Yeah, and it's some of the firms that I've come across. I mean, I graduated up through the ranks of the advisor world the exact stereotypical way, right? I started in a W-2 environment, literally broke out. I remember cleaning out my office on a Sunday night, so that I wouldn't, would be able to get everything that I needed before I dropped the hammer the next day. And then I went 1099, and then I eventually left and started my own RIA, and then I eventually sold it. But that's sort of so once I was out of the industry as an advisor and started to talk to firms from the recruiting side, whenever someone would come to me and say, we offer a W-2 model with no non-compete, I was like, do what? How can you do an employee-based model and let them own their book of business? Or if they would come to me and say, hey, we don't offer these big, 100% of GDC upfront signing bonuses with a 10-year forgivable, whatever, but we do offer a 25% upfront cash bonus that's yours to keep. I was just like, I didn't know those things existed. How do you keep your advisors around if you don't have them handcuffed? But the reality is those firms, they recognize that we have to do a good job or our advisors are free to go. And you're right, the retention ends up being much, much higher for those firms, and the satisfaction rate, I suppose, of advisors reflects that.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that I've learned over the past, one of the biggest things I think I've learned in the recruiting and the M&A space since we landed here at LPL is there are very, very much degrees of independence, right? Mm-hmm. And I never realized that, right? I mean, there are firms in the independent space, certainly to remain nameless, that, put themselves out there as independent and that their advisors are independent. But when you really start to look at, the portability of that book or the advisor's ability to solicit if they choose to leave, you quickly start to realize that their definition, that firm's definition of independence is not quite what you would actually think. And so, 100%. When I speak to advisors who may or may not join our firm, kind of conversational, I always encourage them to look at that really, really closely, because for us, listen, we all have hopes and dreams of continuing to build and something that's valuable and something that, kind of lives and breathes without us into the future. And I think recognizing that you have that truest degree of independence, however we might define that, is just really, really critical, because listen, you've done it, I've done it. The relationships that we build with our clients, they're difficult, right? Very, very difficult to build that trust and that bond over time. And for those of us in the industry that take that really seriously, I don't think that there should be a broker-dealer that can ever put that at risk or in question. And I think that is another big evolution in the industry. And again, that's not to slight the wirehouses or W-2 models or anything like that. It's not my place to do that. But my opinion and kind of what I've seen over the past 6-7 years is that is something that advisors are very, very much on their radar right now.
Yeah, and it's something that I don't want to rub anybody the wrong way either, but I tend to speak my mind, I suppose, and if that rubs people the wrong way, they can get over it. But it's the whole industry's this way in any way you want to frame it, I suppose. But when I would talk to firms, as in the recruiting side, I mean, I've probably talked to, probably 50 to 100 firms, maybe more than that, honestly, at some point or another, and gotten to hear their value proposition. And it's fascinating to me how biased most firms' opinions are themselves, and most firms. It's so funny. If you send a survey out, 95% of firms would claim that they have industry-leading payouts, which is definitionally impossible, right? Which is hilarious to me. But I say that to say, I don't know how many firms there are out there, 15, 20,000 different firms that advisors can join in some way or another. Honest to goodness, I think 90% of them are commoditized. Well, I think 30% of them are junk. And you should run from them like the plague. Another 50 or 60% are all pretty much the same. I mean, you get what you now that they may be an independent firm or a W-2 firm, or there may be different forms of that, but just categorically, they're all pretty. They're pretty fair value is what I would call it. You get what you get. But then there's about, 10% or so of the firms out there that truly are unique and they truly do something a little differently. It usually has to do with a firm who recognizes the direction the industry's going, and they're trying to beat the puck to where it's going to be, as opposed to chasing where it was 10 years ago and trying to bring it back to that. So it's commendable when I see firms that do that. One thing I will say, again, I'm not trying to just flatter you to death here or anything like that, but one thing that I've really enjoyed about our conversations in the past, again, we've had a lot of conversations off the recording, and I do tend to try to only work with that 10%, and the ones that I really do, believe are genuine. I believe that you are one of the very few who genuinely mean it when you say that you put the client first. And I say that with a lot of, that's not an easy thing for me to say, okay, because I've seen so many different firms and advisors. That's so cliche. Nobody's going to put on their website, we put the client second. Everybody has to say we put the client first. But when you get under the hood and you look behind the curtain, or whatever metaphor you want to use, it's not usually executed. But you have iterated to me, and we've talked about it, that is something you truly mean, and that's a key differentiator worth talking about.
Yeah, I have to tell you, it's kind of a pet peeve of mine nowadays, and I talk about this to my team all the time, and you and I have certainly talked about it. In this industry, in this business, right, you have to put the client first. That's what this is rooted in, right? We feel privileged, right? It is not our right, it is our privilege to kind of guide these families through, good times, bad times, everywhere in between. And we take that super seriously, and everything that we do at a firm level, right? I know today we've talked a lot about, the direction of the firm from an advisor perspective and from a recruiting perspective, but never lost on us is the fact that what makes this place run every single day is kind of what our advisors do, myself included, right? Still in private practice, still in personal practice. But the reality is, in a lot of industries, not just our industry, right? I feel that service is dead, right? You walk into an office, whether it's a doctor's office or anywhere you go these days, forget about being greeted with a smile, right? It's a lot if whomever greets you looks up at you, right? Let alone giving you a gracious greeting. And so that's where it starts for us. As a matter of fact, when we rebranded the company and we redid our office space, we thought with, okay, the lobby's the first place people are going to step into. So how do we want to design that, right? Create a beautiful lobby lounge area with some snack. Again, we're not the only ones that have done this, but to your point, I do think that we're probably in the minority of not only firms in our industry, but in other industries that are thinking about that experience that the client is going to get from the moment that they walk into the office or the moment that they pick up the phone to call. And I do think it's lost. I was on the phone with, I think it was my health insurance company or something like that the other day. And, you've heard this story a million times. It took me about, 8 or 9 minutes to get to a live person. When I got to the live person, they were, let's just say, less than friendly. And within about a minute or two, they pushed me off to another department. And when I got to that department, I got disconnected. So, we will have that story, right? And so, to us, that's where it starts, right? When you call our office, you speak to our client concierge. She knows, I'd say, the lion's share of our clients, and it's amazing to me what she knows about them and how personal of a touch she has. And I think people appreciate that because it's not what they're getting anywhere else. Again, not financially necessarily, but just any industry that you look at nowadays. So I appreciate you saying that, and it is very, very high on the list for us to consider, even as we grow, right? Because as we grow, and I think a trap that a lot of firms fall into, a lot of enterprises fall into, is in their quest to grow, right? Which is common, right? Businesses have to grow, whether you're a restaurant or a financial firm. Growth is part of it. If you're not growing, you're dying, right? As they say. But, with growth can sometimes come, a loss of what it is that you were known for, right? That service that you provided, or, that personal touch. And so we've been as deliberate as we can be about growing, but still trying to maintain that feel, that small feel. And we put a lot of time and effort into doing that, whether it's client to staff ratio or advisor to client ratio. These are the things that really drive the ability for us to stay in a personal contact, because I think it's another thing that's very, very missed out there. In everyone's quest for growth, they often forget about what made them unique in the first place.
One of the fallouts, I suppose, of COVID is humanity might have been going in that direction anyway, but COVID definitely exponentially sped up the process of becoming more and more impersonal, I guess, or less and less personal, the way you want to say it. I was talking to an advisor the other day who had reached out, and we're doing a search, and he starts throwing off 4 or 5 different firms that, you know, he's heard of, good things, bad things, whatever. And I explained to him, I said, look, you know, I don't have probably the breadth of contacts in the industry or the relationships that some other recruiters have. A lot of recruiters, I mean, they have 200, 250 firms that they have good relationships with. I don't have that. What I have tried to work on is, or focus on really, is identifying the good people in the industry. And I did an entire episode or a podcast on this where I said, you know, technology has grown to the limit and to the point now where nobody's winning based on technology anymore. Everybody has access to the same technology, and it's very affordable, so everybody can afford it. And that is, interestingly enough, causing the human component to become the key differentiator in firms. I can send you, you know, if you want a firm that has access to this particular technology, I can give you 50 different firms out there that have it, right? But the difference is, and I've seen this experience. I mean, I've had advisors who meet with one firm and then they meet with another firm that they think they're going to like more, and then once they talk to them internally and they get to know the people behind it, they're not interested anymore because they're not who they say they are, or they're not. It's just not. And everybody has been burnt. Well, if you've not been burned in this industry, you know someone who's been burned in the industry, and everybody's a little jaded. So trust really is the thing that matters the most, whether it's an advisor or whether it's a client trying to pick an advisor or an advisor trying to pick a firm. If you can't trust and believe that in what the other person's telling you, it doesn't matter how good their story is, right? So, you know, I commend you and your group for the work you're doing there and for being genuine and being a part of that 10%. Not a lot aren't, so it's good to find that there are a few good ones out there. I can't tell you how many times I've almost thrown my hands up and given up in this racket because it's like, man, I can't trust anybody. But there are still a few out there that you can.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, right? If you look at and I don't know the specifics on this, but I can see the trends of what's happening, right? Of what's happening. There's a lot of advisors on the move, right? Well, happy advisors don't move. Right? That's the reality, right? They stay where they are because they're delivering to their clients what they want, what they need to deliver to make them happy and give good service. And, you know, their broker-dealer partner or their advisory firm partner is giving them what they need. The advisors that are on the move, right, from what I've heard or from what I've seen and my own experiences, you know, a lot of the, I guess I could sum it up with, you know, promises made but not kept. Right? So I joined a broker-dealer, or I joined an OSJ, or I joined an advisory team. And of course, to your point, you know, it's kind of like what you said earlier about, you know, no website's going to say I put clients second. So in this example, we're talking about advisors, you know, every OSJ, every broker-dealer, every advisory firm tells advisors how much they're going to deliver to them, how wonderful the experience is going to be, how different it's going to be from where they are. And in many instances, what we're hearing from a lot of advisors is that, you know, it's not the case, right? I get to where I'm going and it's a lot of the same, or it's a lot of, again, promises made and not kept. So once again, you know, we're not perfect, right? We have a lot to learn. We have a lot that we're doing. On, you know, our ongoing list of what we're working on for our firm and for our team is a mile long, and how we can get better over time. But we're also very, very careful about making promises to advisors that we can't keep, right? I can't guarantee them client acquisition. I can't guarantee them production doubling or anything like that. But what I can provide them, and, you know, we demonstrate this is kind of what we can offer and this is how we offer it. And so we're very careful about that, because I think that most advisors do want to find their forever home, right? I don't think moving is not fun, right? Let's face it, right? For advisors that have done it, it's really not that pleasant of an experience, but it's necessary sometimes to make sure that you are partnering with a firm, partnering with a broker-dealer that can give you the platform that's going to allow you to serve your clients best. That's what it was for us, and I think that's what it is for a lot of advisors that are out there, you know, looking to make a move.
So before we kind of wrap up here, tell me a little bit about the archetype, if you will, of the types of advisors that seem to be the best fit to join your firm. I mean, is it, aside obviously from the client-centric focus that seems to be a firm-wide culture, you know, things like, Do you like advisors that are managing their own portfolios, or do you tend to work best with those who sort of outsource portfolio management or don't, think of themselves as stock pickers or fund pickers? Planning focus I know is a big part of your firm, but just describe in your own words any way you'd like to do it. But what are the advisors that seem to be the best fit? How would you describe them?
Yeah, I mean, I think the advisors that fit our culture and our environment the best are those advisors, to your point, right, that are very client-centric, that believe in high frequency of contact and really just kind of staying involved with their clients so that they can guide them, down any direction on any topic that they might be dealing with at that time, no matter how big or how small that topic may be. We do have a tendency to place less of a focus on, day trading or individual stock picking, things along those lines. We believe that, our role in the investment management is to kind of work side by side the investment professionals and the research professionals to build, models and custom portfolios that suit our clients the best. So we do tend to, outsource that, not fully outsource. We take a real vital role in that. We have an internal investment committee that meets quarterly so that we can kind of obviously be judicious over that process. But to me, again, I think the advisors that really want to build, right, a practice, want to build a business that is 100% centered on client service, competence, right? I think that in today's day and age, I am surprised sometimes at the level of credential, I should say lack of credentials or lack of competence in some scenarios that we see from some of my colleagues out there that might be serving clients at other firms. And so here, we have a very, very big focus on competence, very, very big focus on credentials, and really, a focus on caring, right? I think there's a degree of caring and pride in your work. I mean, that's another thing that I don't know about you, but I see in a lot of industries, the level of pride that people take in their work has just really seemingly gone away in a lot of industries. And I don't know why that is. Maybe it's they don't enjoy what they do or what have you. But, I walk through these halls and I see a great deal of pride in what our advisors are doing, right? Not only are they happy to do it, but they're proud to be able to do it. And I think that's a big differentiator, between a lot of advisors.
And you mentioned that your advisors are in New York, New Jersey, Florida. Are you geographically focused necessarily in your recruiting efforts and acquisition efforts, or can an advisor in Omaha, so to speak, join the firm remotely?
What we've recognized our limitations. We had the opportunity to kind of expand out into the middle of the country and out to the western part of the country, but our focus is very clearly, here on this, I would say this East Coast region, right? It's what we feel most comfortable with. It's what we feel our capacity is. It's our ability to oversee. So yeah, some of our advisors are obviously plugging in more virtually now than they ever did before, but we are also, probably more so than many firms, we are a very, very in-person type of a firm. I mean, we were back to work in the office probably a bit more quickly than a lot of other firms were. I always had the premise that the world would return to work one day, and when a lot of people thought that would never happen, and of course we're seeing that more and more now than we ever did before, and I believe in that, and I think that creates camaraderie. I think it creates the best work productivity. Not that we're opposed to anything like that, but the East Coast region is kind of where we're most focused, and of course the tri-state area, I would say, even more concentrated for us.
I don't want to hold your feet to the fire here and put you under the gun, but just broadly speaking, or at a higher level, what do the economics look like to the advisor? I mean, it sounds like you're providing office space, you're providing that workstation, work environment. You mentioned earlier that there are a lot of different brands of independent, and there are independent firms out there where the advisor pretty much has to come up with everything, but they get a 95% payout. Other firms, you may be at a 60% payout in independent, but everything is plug and play. You've got everything you need. So somewhere in that ballpark, where do you kind of line up in the industry as far as the economics go for advisors?
Yeah, so three things I would say about that. First and foremost, we believe in economies of scale, right? And so, in our quest to grow the firm, what we work day in and day out is to continue to create economics for our advisors and for the firm that look better and better. And as we grow, that of course, looks better and better for us and for our advisors. And we're grateful for our partnership with LPL, who helps with that. As far as association with our firm, we actually found it interesting or important to offer both models. right? So we're kind of agnostic to how our advisors join. So there are some advisors that might want to have more of an affiliation with us. So essentially, hey, I'm looking to really kind of max out on a payout perspective, but we'll handle all of our own expenses, et cetera, et cetera. And we're completely fine with that, right? And then there are other advisors that say, something, I'm willing to kind of trade some degree of payout if you would handle all of these other incidentals for us, whether that's office space, technology, copier, reception, all of that stuff. So, when we were kind of architecting the new firm and embarking on this new organic growth, we felt, listen, I don't want to say, I don't want to sound blunt, but it doesn't matter to us, right? Whatever affiliation model makes the most sense for the advisor, we can get behind. I will tell you, I am seeing a trend towards more and more independent advisors that really want the minutia handled for them, right? They don't want to worry about the copier breaking down. They don't want to worry about, was the website updated, or all this other kind of stuff. So I am seeing kind of a lean more towards that supported independence, if you will, but offering both models we thought was important, so that advisors can really choose the path that they felt most comfortable with.
Good stuff, James. Well, really appreciate your time. Excited to have you on here. And again, this isn't a one-time thing, so I look forward to having you guys back on. You're welcome to come back on, or someone else from your team, but look forward to having more conversations with you and your team about ICG. I love what you guys are doing there. And for advisors who listen to the show, and if you're interested in meeting with James or having a conversation with me about potentially joining ICG, would love to have a conversation with you wherever you're at, whether you're watching on YouTube, listening, watching on the website. My contact information, calendar link, everything is in the description on a screen near you. So just look down and you'll find my contact information. Feel free to shoot me an email, Garrett@theadvisoradvocates.com. Give me a call, text me, 919-561-2436. James, feel free to share your contact information as well. If advisors want to reach out directly to you, that's totally fine with me if it's okay with you. But if I certainly want to give advisors a chance to find you if they're interested in talking.
Yeah, listen, we're always happy to chat with colleagues in the industry. www.icgnext.com is our website, and you're more than welcome to take a look. And if you're interested in talking, we'd be happy to chat with you.
Awesome, my friend. Well, great to have you on here. Look forward to doing it again very, very soon. Enjoy the rest of your, so what's today? Wednesday. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday, and we'll talk again really soon. Thanks a lot.
Garrett, thanks so much.
See ya. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening, whichever the case may be. I'd love for you to become a regular on the show, so please like, subscribe, share, follow, whatever the platform of your choosing may call it. If you're an advisor and you have questions on the topic from today's show or any other shows that you may have watched, I'd love to chat with you. Feel free to shoot me an email at Garrett@theadvisoradvocates.com, and we can schedule a time to sit down and chat. And if you're interested in becoming a sponsor for future episodes, I'd love to chat with you as well. You can also reach out to me at that same email, Garrett@theadvisoradvocates.com. Please be advised that nothing that myself or any guests or co-hosts talk about on the show is intended to be legal advice in any way, shape, or form, or financial advice or investment advice or anything of that nature. It is strictly for education and informational purposes only. Really appreciate you listening. Have a great day.